Every living being will one day taste death. These words, carved on the gate of an old cemetery, echo one of humanity's oldest truths. But what if death isn't as final as we think? What if, for some, the line between life and death blurs for just a moment? And the impossible happens? Throughout history, there have been people declared dead, buried, and yet, somehow, they came back. And many of these stories remain unexplained to this day. If you want to uncover the depths of history, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video. 1. Mr. Cornish. In the early 1900s, Mr. Cornish, the mayor of Bath, England, fell ill with a high fever and soon died. He was buried the next day with an official ceremony, but only a few hours later, people heard noises from the grave. When they opened it, everyone froze. His hands and knees were bloody, and his face was frozen in terror. It seemed he had tried to escape, but couldn't. From that day on, his sister made one request: "When I die, cut off my head before you bury me." 2. Angelo Hees. In 1937, 19-year-old Angelo crashed his motorcycle into a wall. Doctors declared him dead, and his body was sent to the morgue. 2 days later, he was buried. But when the insurance company requested an autopsy, the grave was reopened, and his body was still warm. His heart was beating. Angelo woke up, as if from a deep sleep. He later designed coffins with alarm bells for those who feared being buried alive, and became rich from it. Sometimes, fear saves lives. 3. Luz Milagros, Verón. In Argentina, a young woman gave birth prematurely. Doctors told her the baby was stillborn. The next day, the mother went to the morgue to see her one last time. When the cold drawer opened, the baby suddenly cried. She named her Luz Milagros, the miracle of light. Today, she is alive and healthy. Perhaps death is sometimes just a mistaken name. 4. Mrs. Boggart. In 1893 in Pennsylvania, a young woman suddenly died. That night, her husband saw her in a dream. "I'm not dead," she whispered. Terrified, he went to the cemetery and dug up her grave. Inside, her face was covered in blood, and her fingernails were torn off. She had woken up in her coffin, but too late. Her husband lost his mind and vanished. 5. Le Shu Feng. In a small Chinese village, a 95-year-old woman passed away. Her family, following tradition, kept her in an open coffin for 3 days. On the third day, her daughter arrived, but the coffin was empty. Then came a sound from the kitchen. The old woman was making herself soup. "I was hungry," she said calmly, and continued living, as if nothing had happened. 6. Justin Smith. In the U.S., a young man collapsed in the freezing night. He lay for 12 hours in -20 degrees Celsius weather. When found, his body was frozen stiff, but doctors refused to give up. They pumped his blood with a machine for hours, until his heart started beating again. When Justin woke, he simply said, "I was just sleeping." Maybe death is just another form of sleep. 7. Octavia Smith Hatcher. In the 1890s, a strange illness spread through Kentucky. Octavia died and was buried immediately, but days later, others with the same illness woke up from their comas. Her husband, terrified, ordered her grave to be opened. Inside, the coffin was covered with scratch marks. Octavia had been buried alive. A statue still stands over her grave, carved in her memory. 8. Carlos Camejo. In Venezuela, 33-year-old Carlos died in a car accident. His wife identified his body at the morgue. As doctors began the autopsy, Carlos suddenly flinched in pain. Everyone screamed and ran. Carlos stood up, alive. Today he poses with his own death certificate, smiling. Some people are lucky enough to laugh in the face of death. 9. The man who cried after death. Somewhere in the heart of the Middle East, A man was buried after a sudden heart attack. As his family prayed beside the grave, faint sounds rose from beneath the soil. When they opened it, he was sitting upright, his face wet, as if tears had just fallen. Doctors said it was impossible, but those who witnessed it still whisper, "Sometimes the dead are not ready to leave." 10. Kelvin Santos. In Brazil, a young boy died from pneumonia. Before the funeral, his family kept him in an open coffin at home. Suddenly, the child sat up and asked his father for water. He drank, lay back down, and never woke again. Doctors called it impossible, but everyone there swore they saw it happen. Maybe death isn't as final as we believe. Maybe in a breath between worlds, some find their way back. Or maybe we never truly understood what death is.